Once upon a time, slavery was simple, raw, obvious. The master owned the land, owned the tools, owned the power, and owned the human beings who worked from sunrise to sunset with nothing to show for it. Slaves gave their energy, their strength, their bodies, and every drop of effort enriched only one person, the master. But even the masters eventually noticed something. A man who gains nothing from his labor never gives his full strength. He only works enough to stay alive. And so the first evolution began. The invention of wages. To squeeze more productivity out of the slaves, the masters introduced a new strategy. We will pay you. Not enough to change anything, not enough to set anyone free, but just enough to create the illusion of progress. And it worked. The slaves worked harder, they worked faster, they worked with hope, believing that for the first time they were earning something of their own. But the masters were not done. They built houses close to the fields and factories, then rented those houses back to the slaves. Rent, food, tools, all priced in a way that returned the money to the same hands it came from. So the cycle was perfected. Slaves worked, slaves were paid, slaves paid the masters. The money went in a circle, the power remained in one direction, and the slaves walked around believing they were free because chains were no longer on their wrists. They were now hidden inside the economy. The birth of the economic trap. But the masters noticed something else. Given enough time, some slaves saved little money, some became smarter. Some started imagining the possibility of freedom. So the masters added a new layer. Over time. If you work longer, you will earn more. A simple promise, yet psychologically powerful. The slaves rushed into it. Working more hours, giving more energy, chasing a slightly bigger income. But again, the masters had already prepared the next trap. They built markets, shops, glittering goods, distractions, entertainment, ornaments the slaves believed they needed, consumerism. And suddenly every wage increase had a matching temptation to drain it. The more the slaves earned, the more they spent. The more they spent, the more dependent they became. The more dependent they were, the wealthier the masters grew. Now the slaves weren't just working for survival. They were working to sustain the lifestyle the masters sold to them. The chains were now invisible. The most powerful tool of control. Then came the realization that changed everything. Controlling the body is easy. Controlling the mind is power. The masters discovered that ideas could do what whips never could. And so they crafted new philosophies. Hard work is noble. If you keep grinding, one day you'll be rich like us. This system is fair. Anyone can make it. These ideas spread like wildfire. And for the first time, the slaves began disciplining themselves. No whips needed. They adopted the system as truth. They believed struggling was honorable. They believed wealth was purely a reward for effort. They believed the ladder was climbable, even though the ladder had no top. Then the masters introduced education, not to empower the slaves, but to train them to serve the system more efficiently. Obedience became a subject, conformity became a virtue, and religion was tailored to preach patience, endurance, humility, and submission to those in power. It was genius. They didn't just build a workforce, they built a mindset that protected the system more than any army could. Capitalism, the golden age of invisible chains. As the system grew more sophisticated, the masters built institutions to cement their power, banks to control capital, politics to control society, media to control perception. Credit flowed upward, opportunity flowed upward, power flowed upward. But to maintain the illusion of fairness, they invented something new, the middle class, a group of workers who earned just enough to feel superior to the poorest, but not enough to challenge the wealthy. The middle class became the buffer, the shield, the enforcers of the very system that oppressed them. They became overworked, overstressed, in debt, constantly upgrading lifestyle, constantly chasing promotions, yet always 1 or 2 paychecks away from collapse. This wasn't an accident, it was design. The final evolution, digital slavery. When the age of technology arrived, many believed the world had finally entered freedom. Information was accessible, opportunities were global, anyone could build anything. That was the illusion, because behind the scenes, the masters had evolved into something beyond individuals. They became corporations, algorithms, networks, platforms, and they discovered a new kind of slavery, one that didn't require physical labor at all. Attention became the new currency, data became the new gold, addiction became the new chain. Every scroll, every click, every like, every share, all turned into profit for entities the slaves would never see. Debt became digital, consumerism became personalized, manipulation became automated, and every dream the slaves had, success, wealth, beauty, influence, was turned into a product sold back to them through influencers, advertisements, and endless upgrades. This was the peak of the system, a world where people willingly give their time, their focus, their privacy, their emotions, and their desires to corporations that profit from their every move. And the slaves don't resist, because this time the slavery feels like choice. The chains feel like progress. The system feels like freedom. The question only a few can answer. Now the story ends where it always does, with a question. Not a moral lesson, not a lecture, not a motivational quote, just a question that every intelligent person must confront. If the system evolved from chains to wages to education to capitalism and finally into digital control, where exactly do you stand in this hierarchy? Are you a free thinker or a slave disguised as a consumer? Are you building systems or trapped inside one? Are you controlling your attention or feeding someone else's wealth? Are you owning the tools of the new world or being turned into the product? And most importantly, are you escaping the system or helping it evolve? Because the truth is simple. Slavery never ended. It only changed format. It only upgraded. It only evolved. And the next evolution, it will be built by the same people who understand the game, and owned by those who don't.